Welcome back to Book Bites, where we unlock the best books in 10 key points, turning pages into powerful ideas. Today, we will dive into the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Published in 1848 as revolutions shook Europe, the manifesto is technically a political pamphlet, a bold critique of capitalism and a call for worker revolution. Marx and Engels argued that history is defined by class struggle, with the bourgeoisie exploiting the proletariat for profit. Marx, a philosopher, and Engels, an industrialist's son, exposed capitalism's contradictions and urged workers to overthrow the ruling class to create a society free from exploitation and class divisions. More than a critique, the manifesto became a revolutionary call to action. Marx and Engels rejected nationalism, declaring that workers must unite beyond borders. Their closing words, "Workers of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains," remain a rallying cry. Though initially overlooked, the manifesto shaped socialist movements and remains deeply relevant as capitalism faces ongoing crises and inequality. Key point 1. History is the story of class struggle. Marx and Engels argue that human history is fundamentally a story of conflict between economic classes. From ancient times to feudalism and now capitalism, society has always been divided between those who own wealth and those who work for them. In feudal societies, lords controlled the land, while peasant serfs toiled on it. With the rise of capitalism, feudal lords were replaced by the bourgeoisie, the owners of factories, businesses, and wealth, while peasants became the proletariat, selling their labor for wages. The manifesto argues that this struggle is the driving force of historical change, with revolution being the inevitable response to extreme inequality. Key point 2. Capitalism is exploitative by nature. Under capitalism, workers do not own the tools, factories, or land they use to produce goods. Instead, they are forced to sell their labor to capitalists, who then profit from the work they do. Marx and Engels argue that wages paid to workers are always lower than the value of what they produce, and the difference, called surplus value, is taken by capitalists as profit. This means capitalism inherently exploits workers, extracting wealth from their labor while paying them just enough to survive. Meanwhile, the bourgeoisie accumulates massive wealth, deepening social inequality. Key point 3. Capitalism is unstable and doomed to collapse. Marx and Engels argue that capitalism contains the seeds of its own destruction. It constantly expands, seeking new markets and greater profits. But this leads to crises of overproduction, where goods are produced in excess but cannot be sold because workers, who create those goods, are too underpaid to afford them. These economic crashes lead to mass unemployment and social unrest, making the contradictions of capitalism clear. The system's reliance on constant growth and competition ensures that crises will only intensify, leading to revolutionary conditions. Key point 4. The bourgeoisie reshapes society in its own image. Capitalism is not just an economic system. It transforms the entire world to fit its needs. Feudal traditions, local economies, and even personal relationships are reshaped by market forces. Marx and Engels argue that capitalism dissolves long-standing social bonds and replaces them with economic relationships. Even family structures change as people migrate to cities for work, prioritizing survival over tradition. The bourgeoisie's influence extends into culture, politics, and morality, shaping everything in a way that benefits profit-making rather than human well-being. Key point 5. The proletariat will rise. Capitalism's own contradictions will push workers to fight back, but revolution is not automatic. The working class must become aware of its exploitation and act collectively. This awakening, known as class consciousness, leads workers to organize against their rulers. As Marx and Engels declared, what the bourgeoisie therefore produces, above all, is its own gravediggers. Its fall and the victory of the proletariat are equally inevitable. When workers realize they have the numbers and the power to overthrow the system, the old world will collapse, making way for something new. Key point 6. The abolition of private property. One of the most controversial ideas in the Communist Manifesto is the call to abolish private property, not personal belongings, but the large-scale ownership of land, factories, and businesses that allows the bourgeoisie to exploit workers. Critics argue that communists want to take away individual property, but as Marx and Engels clarify, you are horrified at our intending to do away with private property. But in your existing society, private property is already done away with for 9/10 of the population. In other words, most people already own nothing. They only labor to enrich those who do. True freedom, they argue, means breaking this cycle of ownership and exploitation. Key point 7, the need to abolish national divisions. Marx and Engels argue that workers should not be divided by national borders because their true struggle is not between nations, but between classes. As they put it, the working men have no country. We cannot take from them what they have not got. They point out that capitalism itself has already created an interconnected world, breaking down local economies and expanding markets across national lines. The need of a constantly expanding market for its products chases the bourgeoisie over the whole surface of the globe, they explain, showing how industrial production relies on resources from distant lands and exports goods across continents. While this is not globalization in the modern sense, capitalism in the 19th century was already shaping a world where economic systems crossed borders. Rather than clinging to national divisions, workers should recognize their shared struggle and unite against their common oppressors. Key point 8, the role of communists. In the Communist Manifesto, Marx and Engels define the role of communists as the vanguard of the working class. They argue that communists must advocate for the interests of the proletariat, helping to organize and educate workers about their exploitation. As they state, the communists are distinguished from the other working class parties by this only: they explicitly advocate the interests of the working class as a whole. This means that while other groups may focus on specific issues, communists aim for a comprehensive understanding of class struggle. Ultimately, their goal is to dismantle the capitalist system and create a classless society where the means of production are collectively owned. Key point 9, the proletariat must seize political power. To end capitalist exploitation, the working class must take control of the state. But unlike previous revolutions, where one ruling class replaced another, the proletarian revolution will aim to eliminate class divisions entirely. The proletariat will use its political supremacy to wrest, by degree, all capital from the bourgeoisie, to centralize all instruments of production in the hands of the state. This means dismantling the systems that uphold capitalism and replacing them with a government that represents the working majority. Over time, as class distinctions disappear, the state itself will become unnecessary and wither away. Key point 10, the call to revolution. The Communist Manifesto does not merely analyze capitalism, it ends with a call to action. Marx and Engels urge the proletariat to rise up against the bourgeoisie, emphasizing that workers have the power to overthrow the system that exploits them. As they famously declare, "Let the ruling classes tremble at a communist revolution. The proletarians have nothing to lose but their chains. They have a world to win." This is not just a slogan, but a direct challenge to the working class to recognize their collective strength and seize control of their own destiny. The manifesto makes it clear that this revolution must be global, as capitalism itself operates beyond national borders. "Workers of the world, unite" is more than a rallying cry. It is a demand for solidarity among the oppressed. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. If you found this summary insightful, be sure to like the video and subscribe for more deep dives into revolutionary ideas. If you want to explore these themes further, I recommend Capital Volume 1 by Karl Marx, a detailed critique of how capitalism functions and exploits labor, and The Conquest of Bread by Peter Kropotkin, a foundational anarchist text that envisions a world where everyone's needs are met without the constraints of capitalism or authoritarianism. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.